the big stories, and I want to get Paul Watson's take on this after he covers his latest story. Obama says FCC should reclassify internet as utility. Ted Cruz, who's been in the committee hearings, says what I've said. It is the Obamacare version of communications. Obamacare for the internet. They call it one thing, it's another. And that integrates in with Obamacare architect. Lack of transparency, lying, was key on fooling, quote, stupid Americans. I mean, these people are sick. In fact, let's get to that first, Paul, because you wrote that article, too, this morning. How do these people go on C-SPAN with a bunch of academics and Obama people and laugh about lying and laugh about increasing prices and lying about it and laugh about charging healthy people? And, of course, death panels, all of it. Why, if they're engaged in what is clearly, in my view, criminal activity, fraud, why tell people they did it later? I mean, I've studied criminology, and I just never get why criminals or just sociopaths, scum, control freaks, nutbags, whatever you want to call them, gravitate towards power, and then they start dancing around, hopping around, bragging how they're screwing everyone. Why do that? Why do they flap their mouths? I guess because they enjoy terrorizing those of us that are awake. What do you think's going on here, Paul?
In the case of Gruber, I think it's partly, you know, he's a technocrat and he likes to think that he's smarter than 300 and odd million American people.
So he thinks we're just too dumb to even understand him talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you watch that clip, just the hubris and the arrogance of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I want to slap him upside the head the whole time I look at him.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's a bureaucrat. He helped write Obamacare back in 2009, but you know, Obama said if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. That was another broken promise. Every single promise with Obamacare was broken. It
wasn't a promise. It was already in the bill, premeditated fraud, saying they're liars, there's no death panels, it doesn't increase prices, there's no hidden taxes, don't listen to the racist, Matt Drudge, Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones. I mean, by name, we are racist, lying scum. No, we read the bill, Paul. I'm sorry I'm getting mad. I am sick of these people.
It definitely makes you a little bit more angry when they get up afterwards and brazenly admit to the fact that they deceived everybody from the beginning.
Is it that premeditation?
In some cases, yeah, but in others, they just like to think that they're smarter than everyone else and that Obamacare is going to be great and it's going to save America, and they think they were right from the start, so they're not going to backtrack on that.
Okay, I'm going to settle down. What do you make of saving the internet? Obama wants to take it over with the FCC. I told folks that was coming. Here it is.
Well, I mean, you've got to remember that going back years, the Obama kill switch has been in the works for a very long time, and they actually justified it at the time through Lieberman and everyone else by pointing to China as the example. Numerous times China has tried to register bloggers using their real names so they can be identified and targeted by the government.
That's right. Lindsey Graham, McCain, Lieberman when he was in, and Democrats have, Feinstein, have all pointed at China and said, see, they did it. Yeah, Mao killed 84 million people. Does that mean it's okay for you to?
Exactly. And the reason China did it was to censor and strangle free speech at times of intense political uprising. So when the Tibetans were rising up, for example, a few years ago, that's when they shut off the internet in all these different areas. So they use it to stifle dissent, and then Lieberman gets on air and says, we need this power because China uses it, so why shouldn't we have it? They use it to stifle freedom and for censorship because it's a communist police state.
China has mobile execution vans and is a hellhole. You visited it.
Yeah, on many occasions. The key with this latest thing is, though, that everybody thinks that Obama is, you know, winging his way in to save the internet, to impose net neutrality. But again, I mean, look at their history of how they treat the internet. You know, SOPA, PIPA, all these other bills that are introduced through Congress, they're not advocates for a free and open internet. So to give them that level of power and control is ridiculous.
Yeah, let's just make the announcement. World governments worldwide are moving to censor the web. Australia calls it Chinese-style net censorship. The government called it that. They are moving to shut us down because they can't beat us in the intellectual arena of ideas. Do you understand, folks? That's why you get presidential alerts on your phone now. That's why they take over TV stations now. They're getting you ready for it. Paul?
Yeah, and the danger of these corporations creating fast lanes and slow lanes is far less than the danger of the government having control over the entire World Wide Web, which is what they want. They've admitted to it on several occasions. And, you know, the basic facts of competition dictates that service will improve across the board. That's not going to happen. So, I mean, a lot of liberals are getting behind this, though. They've jumped right on board with Obama's comments today.
Yeah, he's going to protect your health care by screwing you over, and now he's going to protect the internet with the same thing, which big corporations are behind in many cases because it's all going to be selective. Incredible. Paul, let's shift gears to your newest article on Infowars.com. Very interesting information. Let's get into what this scientist is saying, immunologist, that's a medical doctor who specializes in vaccines and immune systems, what they admitted but didn't want their name released in the video.
Yeah, it's basically a PhD immunologist, a vaccine advocate, who gets up before a panel of health professionals at this medical conference and admits to the fact that vaccines for babies in the first year, which babies in America receive at least 26 vaccines recommended unless you go jump through, you know, flaming hoops and opt out of it. 26 vaccines in the first year. So this immunologist gets up and basically admits that because a baby's immune system isn't even developed by then, they get the immunity through the breast milk mainly. These vaccines are completely pointless, worthless for the first year. They have no effect. And that what it's really about is training the parents to bring their babies to pediatric wellness visits.
Yeah, that's what the wellness checks and all of it is, but they're only telling you half the story. It's to induct them in, damage their immune system, compromise them, attack their blood-brain barrier, and give them an IQ reduction that the White House science czar wrote about in 1974.
Well, you've got studies from 2011, which I cite in this article. Infant mortality rates regressed against number of vaccine doses routinely given. And it basically documents the fact that the countries with the least vaccines for babies also have the least infant mortality. So Sweden and Japan give the least vaccines to infants up to 1 year of age. They have the lowest infant mortality rates. Guess who has the highest number of vaccines given to babies and the highest infant mortality rate?
USA, baby.
6.2 infant deaths per 1,000 births. And you can compare these two charts, vaccines, number of vaccines compared to infant mortality, and they almost exactly correlate.
And again, they're not trying to kill the kid outright, as folks would notice, but when you bust a cap in somebody's cerebral cortex 20-something times in the first year, 40-something times by 18 months, you're going to get an overcook up. And that's why most of the kids with autism are fine to 18 months. They go on for the next round, and hey, it's done. The bell bings, the brain's gone, and the black op's been successful. And I'm sorry for everybody out there, but parents don't want to listen, so go ahead, murder your children. Government loves it.
And on autism, of course, Dr. Andrew Wakefield was demonized for over a decade for making that connection between MMR vaccine and autism. Well, there's a new study that's confirmed it, shows that increases in autism rates are linked to the introduction of vaccines manufactured using human fetal cell lines from aborted babies.
And a scientist at the CDC went public who wrote the document they used to go after Wakefield and others and admitted they were basically told the lie, and it's a fraud, and it is brain damaging, especially boys. Why? Because our blood-brain barrier isn't as strong as girls.
Exactly. So he was castigated for over a decade for making that connection. Now, another peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Public Health and Epidemiology confirms that connection.
Paul, it's important. Let's do one more segment. Bottom of the hour, we're going to go to Lawrence, Chris, Tim, Derek, Azriel, and others. Folks, don't listen to us. In the case of fairness, trust the government. Give your children hundreds of shots, and you can bury them. I physically get angry when I know they're giving people vaccines to brain damage them, and the doctors and nurses are in denial because they're not murdering killers. That's how compartmentalization works. They believe the hype they're putting out. And they'll always, when I see them on the street or they email me, they'll the science of immunology is very well known. You didn't go to Harvard. Actually, I've argued like 5 times with a Harvard doctor who's connected to my family. I'll just leave it at that. And as a pediatrician. And I'll start saying, well, what about all the secret testing? What about all the contamination? What about all the admissions that the swine flu shots in the 70s killed thousands of people? What about, and they just kept, I don't want to hear it, you're not a medical doctor. And I'm like, I've interviewed hundreds of them, literally. I've got all the medical reports. I can read these. I can read the infant mortality. Everybody I talked to that's got an autistic boy, at 18 months, they got the 3rd round of shots. They had a convulsion on the way home or that night. And they never talked again. Do you understand how? But they just will not admit they've been doing this. See, that's how the Nazis were. Most of them didn't think they were bad. They thought they were doing good. And as stuff got more and more evil, they had already signed on, so they just went along with it. I wish there were high-tech vaccines that had been double tested, that had liability, that they tell you the dangers, and you make the choice. I would probably get some of them. But not from these people. It's like saying, are you against hamburgers? Well, there's a place where 50 people died in 1 year from food poisoning. And you're like, let's get hamburgers from this place. And I'm like, no, no, no. They're like, what, you don't like hamburgers? No, man, there's something in those burgers, okay? They're not good. And then we know the troops have been given the anthrax shots 3 different times, killed whole groups of them till the doctors at the bases wouldn't give them. They'd court-martial people, but they'd still stand their ground. They'd drop the court-martial. The officers aren't getting the shots. Joe Biggs used to get ordered, staff sergeant, order his men to take it. He'd have to take it. And the higher-ups would not take it and laugh at him and just say, that's the way it is, Joe. Sergeant, get your butt out there and do it. I've been told that by military across the board. They know, okay? People know they're bad. I'm ranting. I want to play the clip of the immunologist at this meeting getting up and saying this. The video's up on Infowars.com right now. Here's the clip.
The science seems fairly clear that for the first year of life, probably, the immunization is not stimulating the kind of response that we expect it to stimulate. So what's the rationale for continuing to do that if it's not doing what it's supposed to do?
The vaccines are given at pediatric wellness visits, and the idea is that you are training a parent to bring their child in at all the pediatric wellness visits, and that it's only the year visit that actually is truly important, but that for most parents, you're not going to get them to bring their kid in if they don't.
What she's saying, again, this is compartmentalized. What they're saying is partially true. That's why the kids don't get as much brain damaging until 18 months when the immune system actually kicks in. Then they have an autoimmune, hemorrhagic almost response is what I've heard described of in the brain. An autoimmune storm, blood on the brain, and the cops come and there's blood coming out, your 18-month-olds, they're going to arrest you, and you don't blame the cops. They come, your nose coming out the babies. What'd you do to your kid? The hospital then won't admit it's the vaccine, even though they know. They'll tell the officers they must have shook this kid. You're going in handcuffs. Now, since this quietly came out in court the last 20 years, they don't do that as much because the cops now won't call for an indictment because they know. I tell you, Paul, closing out in the last 2 minutes, this is so sinister. It makes me so angry. And I was talking to a lady I know that's pregnant right now, and she's going to get shots for the baby. She goes, I've read the literature, but I'm still so scared. And I got the flu shot even though I'm pregnant. When we know that's the only thing that probably could hurt her baby, Paul. I mean, we have the medical science. We know.
Well, I mean, at least know what you're injecting yourself with or your child. I mean, NHS government hospitals in Britain, if you got so much as a cut, they force you to take a tetanus jab, and you say to them, I had a friend who this happened to recently, and you say, what is that? And they just take it, and then it turns out later it's got 5 different vaccines in it, and they don't even tell you what's in it when they force it upon you. We've got a mainstream media that says mercury helps, not harms children, when anybody on the planet Earth, even a layman, knows that mercury causes brain damage. That's where the term mad as a hatter came from. Because in England in the 18th century, they made felt for top hats. It was contaminated with mercury. They got dementia. That's where mad as a hatter comes from. But now the mainstream media says it's healthy for kids when we know it causes brain damage. So in that environment, just be informed and know what you're injecting yourself and your child with.
That's right, absolutely. And the doctors and nurses are committed to this evil, and they're trying to stop it, some of them, and getting targeted. They make them take it, or they fire them. I mean, it's just outrageous totalitarianism, and now they're giving flu shots to kids everywhere without parental consent. Paul, great job. Thank you for joining us. We're going to come